A new survey sheds light on the mental health impacts of the pandemic.
A place of severe loneliness that came with a lot of anxiety.
We take a deeper look at why some communities are dealing with higher levels of stress.
We are seeing definitely a significant increase in the COVID patients. They're younger and they're sicker.
Plus, the changing face of COVID patients in intensive care units in the GTA, why it's alarming some medical experts.
We are in the third wave. It's just a matter of what kind of wave is it.
And how the race between the variants and the vaccines is playing out in Ontario, and the shipment en route that has the Premier saying, "God bless America." Good evening, I'm Chris Glover. Data collected at the end of last year is painting a grim picture of our collective mental health. Statistics Canada says 1 in 5 Canadians screened positive for symptoms of depression, anxiety, or post-traumatic stress disorder. Dahlia Ashry takes a closer look.
I'm just kidding, my husband doesn't let me drive. I'm also kidding, I don't have a husband.
Selma Hindi is a biomedical research engineer by day.
And a stand-up comedian by night, or at least I used to be.
She says she's always dealt with anxiety, but
COVID and the lockdown sort of made any buried issues rise to the surface.
The stage was always a place she could make others laugh and an escape of some sorts, even an outlet for her mental health.
I didn't realize how much of my life depended on socializing and being around people. It's where I got all of my validation and my energy from. It was, performing to crowds, strangers.
Data from a survey released today by Statistics Canada reveals 1 in 5 Canadians 18 and above have demonstrated symptoms of anxiety, depression, and PTSD.
We're only now dealing with the effects of an entire year of a sudden change that has overwhelmed many of our nervous systems.
For Hindi, one of the sudden changes meant not performing stand-up and now needing to come face-to-face with her own solitude.
A place of severe loneliness that came with a lot of anxiety from wanting to evade the loneliness.
Zainab Abdullah is a psychotherapist and the co-founder of Wellnest Psychotherapy Services. And while she says loneliness, finances, and a lack of structure due to lockdowns are contributing factors to people's mental health, she says Black, Indigenous, and people of color experience higher levels of stress.
Given systemic inequalities, systemic oppression around. And so having already to deal on a day-to-day basis with so much stress in and of itself makes us more vulnerable to now having to deal with the impact of other traumas and other stressors like COVID.
While Hindi looks forward to getting back on stage one day, right now she's found another way to cope.
A woman who was born and raised in a Muslim household, so we've been in quarantine our whole lives, okay?
Her very own virtual comedic videos and Therapy Thursdays. Dahlia Ashry, CBC News, Toronto.
Starting tomorrow, people as young as 75 years old in Halton Region will be allowed to book COVID-19 vaccine appointments. York Region and Brant County are already allowing it, but it's not the case yet in hard-hit Toronto and Peel, where appointments are still only available to those 80 and over. Lorenda Redekop has more now on what some experts are calling a troubling equity equation.
Born 1941, I was lucky.
He just made it through in the 80-plus category, but this is the first day people 75 and up in York Region can also book for their vaccine. Seeing family is at the top of the list for many seniors once they have immunity.
My great-grandchildren, I don't see them very much.
Brant County is also on to vaccinating people 75 plus. As of tomorrow, so is Halton Region. But Toronto and Peel, both still under lockdown, are not.
Especially northwest Toronto and large swaths of Peel region have disproportionately borne the brunt of the COVID-19 virus, and therefore should have received more of the vaccine at this point when we have limited supply.
This palliative care physician cites information from the province's science table.
So if you're an 80-year-old who's living in the highest risk postal code, and your risk of dying from COVID-19 is 27 times higher compared to an 80-year-old living in the lowest risk postal code.
Today, some news that could mean vaccinations for all seniors happen faster. The U.S. is working on a deal to send 1.5 million doses of AstraZeneca to Canada.
God bless America. They're coming to our rescue.
The Premier clearly ecstatic.
I heard rumors, but this is good news. If they can help out, God bless them. We're ready. We'll take all the vaccines you can give us.
He also said Ontario will expand AstraZeneca to seniors. Now it's only offered to 60 to 64-year-olds in pharmacies and doctors' offices.
We want to get going on it as soon as possible. I think it's good news that we can use AstraZeneca for 60 plus all the way up. And I think it just gives us more flexibility and more ammunition to get needles into people's arms.
And the race to stay ahead of the virus is on.
But we are in the third wave. It's just a matter of what kind of wave is it, or will it be?
The chief medical officer is concerned by the rapidly rising number of variants in the province, with more than 1,200 now confirmed and more than 10,000 screening positive, with a second test still required. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Meanwhile, testing at Toronto General Hospital has confirmed an outbreak of COVID-19 in the operating rooms. The University Health Network says it's identified 4 confirmed cases among staff over the past 5 days. There are no cases among patients, though. They say a number of control measures have been put in place to prevent further transmission, adding the risk to patients is extremely low. And new COVID control measures to tell you about at schools in Peel. Teachers will now have to wear eye protection when inside school buildings. The Peel District School Board says protection in the form of a face shield or goggles is now mandatory. And the move comes after a recommendation from Peel Public Health. The policy applies to teachers and essential visitors who enter a building for longer than 15 minutes. Now to the way the COVID pandemic is shifting in Ontario, and medical experts here are warning tonight the variants are not just more contagious, but data is suggesting they're causing more severe illness as well. Lauren Pelly explains who's now becoming at greater risk.
This was a hopeful scene for seniors in Scarborough today, a COVID-19 vaccination clinic at Centennial College.
Did it hurt? No. It's a tickle. Tickle.
A team from the Scarborough Health Network was on site to give as many people as possible their shots. But supplies remain sluggish, and there's growing worry behind the scenes.
Every day we probably have 30 COVID-related critical illnesses in our ICU. Our ICUs have been hit very, very hard in Scarborough.
Emergency physicians also say who's coming to hospital may be changing.
Since last week, we are seeing definitely a significant increase in the COVID patients. They're younger and they're sicker.
I myself saw a few patients in their 30s and 40s who had significant illness.
Experts say several factors are at play. While older adults are finally getting protection from vaccines, most younger adults remain vulnerable. At the same time, virus variants are circulating widely, posing more danger to adults of any age.
We have data at this point that suggests that they're not just more transmissible, but they're also cause more severe illness and more death.
We never really saw a gap in ICU patients like we did in the summertime.
New admissions are happening against the backdrop of a patchwork of restrictions and reopenings across Ontario, meaning more younger adults mingling, perhaps not aware of the new risks.
You know, I've heard of younger people getting COVID and just changing their lives.
Premier Doug Ford says he'll keep listening to medical experts on what's needed next to protect people of all ages. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Still, the pandemic has, of course, had devastating effects on Ontario's long-term care homes. And tonight, we can tell you about a funding boost for the sector.
Today, we are announcing a $933 million investment for the development of over 7,500 new spaces and over 4,000 upgraded spaces through 80 projects across this province.
That funding is part of the government's commitment to add 30,000 new long-term care beds over a decade. The money will also go towards reducing wait lists. Some of the projects include upgrades to older homes stemming from lessons learned around infection prevention, and control during the pandemic, including the elimination of 3- and 4-bed rooms. The government also announced it would extend a $3 wage increase for about 50,000 eligible PSWs in the sector until the end of June. Turning to some other news now, and York Regional Police have charged more than a dozen people with a slew of offenses after recovering 73 high-end stolen vehicles worth $4.5 million.
They would generally scout cars in the early evening hours, returning in the early morning hours. They would force entry to the vehicle, and then at that point, they would be reprogramming the car's computer to recognize their own fob, so a brand new key fob for the vehicle. The total time that this vehicle would have needed to be stolen would have been under 5 minutes.
Officers conducted a raid on Tuesday and charged 18 people with more than 170 offenses. It was part of Project Majestic, a 2-month investigation with York, Peel, and Toronto Police Services. Investigators say they identified a criminal syndicate in the GTA and Montreal area responsible for stealing high-end vehicles from affluent neighborhoods. Police are warning drivers to park their cars in a garage or use an anti-theft device on the vehicle. In Oshawa, more than a dozen people were forced to shelter at a community center overnight after a fire at their apartment building.
We're looking at moving the residents that need shelter to a temporary location at a hotel in the city. A lot of these people are leaving with just the clothes on their backs.
Flames broke out in a unit on the 2nd floor of the 4-story building on Glen Street just after 1 a.m. 13 tenants were forced out, 2 of which sustained injuries and were taken to the hospital. One suffered smoke inhalation and has since been released. The other suffered a medical incident and remains in the hospital. The Office of the Fire Marshal is investigating the cause of the fire. Metrolinx is confirming that some changes are being made to the Yonge North Subway extension plan. The new line, which will run from Finch Station up to High Tech Road in Richmond Hill, will now have fewer stops and an altered route. Greg Ross has the details.
When the Yonge North Subway extension was originally announced, they envisioned adding 6 new stops along Yonge Street with a budget of $5.6 billion. Since taking over the project 2 years ago, Metrolinx says they've had to scale back in order to stay within budget.
$5.6 billion budget can pay for the route and the alignment as it's got now and 4 stations.
So far, 3 of those stations have been confirmed, including one at Yonge and Steeles, another at Langstaff GO Station, and a third at High Tech Road.
The 4th station can be any one of 3 stations that we've listed.
The other possible locations for a 4th stop include Coomer, Clark, and Royal Orchard. That doesn't seem to be sitting well with Markham Mayor Frank Scarpitti, who could lose 2 stops and is concerned about potential impact on local businesses. In a statement today, he said, "My focus continues to be on securing a federal commitment for the subway extension and working with the province and Metrolinx to build stations at Clark and Royal Orchard."
We're working very closely with Markham and with the region of York, but also with the City of Toronto to make sure that the alignment and the choices we've made is understood and the reasons for that's understood.
The changes could mean longer commutes for some riders who will have to transfer onto other forms of transportation.
If you cut it, I am not happy.
Probably not good because I'm going to work, it's going to take a long time,
The other big change is at the north end of the line, which has now been rerouted off Yonge Street and onto the existing rail corridor, bringing the final 2 stops at Langstaff and High Tech Road above ground. Metrolinx says this opens the door for future expansion.
The way we're using it, we're creating a good sort of connection point to extend this railway in the future, the subway in the future, all the way up to Major Mac.
Metrolinx is planning public consultations in the areas affected by the changes. Today, the mayor of Markham encouraged his residents to attend and voice their concerns. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
My thoughts on the experience for myself and my colleagues is that it was a shambles.
After the break, last-minute hiring and inadequate training. CBC News is hearing from some of the workers brought in for the bumpy launch of Ontario's vaccination hotline. That exclusive story is coming up. Plus,
we're in for a long stretch of fantastic weather. Your full sunny 5-day forecast after the break.
Welcome back. One worker for the provincial government's new COVID vaccine helpline says the operation is in shambles. Several temps hired for the hotline say they received nearly no training. And CBC News has learned the province was still hiring hundreds of workers just days before it launched. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has the exclusive details.
More than 100,000 people have already booked appointments for a COVID-19 vaccination through Ontario's new web portal.
Very efficient, a super system they have there.
I'm hoping the bugs are worked out.
But it hasn't been smooth sailing for everyone.
I tried the phone line 56 times one day, and it was constantly either busy or telling me that the line was so full that you had to call back later.
The province set up a telephone helpline for people who have trouble booking via the web. 2,200 people have been hired to staff the phones. Although the vaccination campaign has been planned for months, hundreds of the hotline workers were hired just days before it launched.
My thoughts on the experience for myself and my colleagues is that it was a shambles.
These hotline workers say they were promised 3 days of training, but instead got less than 3 hours. CBC News is concealing their identities so they don't lose their jobs.
It left me with a feeling of actually dread by the end of it, that I wasn't prepared to even engage in the first phone call.
They say they and their fellow agents were largely unable to help the seniors calling in.
Creating that level of anxiety for the people you're trying to serve, it's not an acceptable way to treat the populace, especially anybody who's over 80.
This was clearly inadequate training and preparation. These poor people were hung out to dry.
Why was the hiring done so late and the training so brief? No answers from the government to those questions, and just this shout out from the Premier.
This call center, they've done an incredible job. I want to thank all 2,200 operators, and the wait time, the last 24 hours they told me is less than a minute. So they're pumping it out.
This government knew for a long time that this is what they were going to do. So the fact that they waited to the last minute to train people just shows once again that they're more interested in saving money than saving lives.
The government says the vaccination hotline handled 76,000 calls during its first 2 days. That works out to an average of less than 1.5 calls per agent each hour. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
A bit chilly and certainly windy out there tonight as we look live at the Toronto skyline. And we didn't get the kind of warmth today we've been having lately or the kind of sunshine either, but that is about to change. Nick Cernkovich is here now with a look at the long-range forecast. And Nick, we're in for a long stretch of great weather.
Well, some fantastic weather headed our way, Chris, and it's all about the sunshine. In fact, that is our first weather headline. High pressure moving in, that gives us sunshine. We've got mild weather, and did I mention sunshine? We're going to get to the long-range forecast in just a sec here, and you are going to like it. This is the rain that moved through earlier this morning. It has brought some severe weather across the southern United States. In behind it, high pressure is moving in, and as it slides in, it basically locks itself in place right over us. And so this is essentially our forecast all the way through until about next Tuesday, believe it or not, and it's looking pretty good. Wind-wise, a little breezy today. We had winds in southwestern Ontario gusting close to 70 kilometers per hour, gusts around 50 kilometers per hour across the GTA. As we head through tonight, still kind of breezy. Same story for tomorrow morning. By the afternoon hours, though, say around about 2, 3 p.m. or so, we're going to see the winds start to come down and calmer conditions building in. Now, today, we had temperatures at 6 degrees in the city of Toronto, 5 down in Windsor, single digits just about everywhere. Tomorrow, temperature-wise, much the same, and then it gets warmer heading into the weekend. Tonight will be a cool one, though. As cloud cover clears out, we're going to see temperatures drop down below the 0 mark. So we've got temperatures around -4, -5 degrees in southwestern Ontario, and that paired with some pretty strong winds will make for wind chills that are going to be in the minus double digits. Tomorrow, though, again, up to single-digit highs, but lots in the way of sunshine. Still breezy in southwestern Ontario, gust about 50 kilometers per hour, easing throughout the afternoon. So you're going to see stronger winds in southwestern Ontario for a little bit longer than areas across the Golden Horseshoe. For the Golden Horseshoe tonight, we're looking at temperatures of -6. Winds again gusting to about 50 kilometers per hour. Tomorrow, we've got temperature highs of 4 or 5 degrees across the region. Lots in the way of sunshine, but it does get a whole lot warmer in the next 5-day forecast. Here's what it looks like. This actually is our only single-digit day. As we head into Saturday and Sunday, we've got a pair of 11s there. Overnight lows also starting to come up as well. 13 for Monday, so we've actually got at least low teens in there. And Tuesday looking at 12 degrees. And really what's keeping these temperatures down is a little bit of an easterly breeze where it's coming off of the water. If that shifts, we'll see these temperatures pop up, possibly even by another couple of degrees. Chris.
Either way, can't wait for that weekend. Thanks, Nick.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
Before we go, a 10-year-old Saskatchewan girl is among the top 5 winners of a worldwide drawing competition for IKEA. And now her adorable sketches are going to be turned into stuffed toys by the Swedish furniture and housewares giant. Shoppers will be able to buy the plush critters with proceeds going to children's charities. Take a look.
Mom found it online and she helped me submit a drawing. I get emails from IKEA through their IKEA family membership, and Audrey did her drawing just the one time and she was set on it and said it was ready, and I don't even think I had finished reading through the entry requirements and she was already done and ready to send it. Well, they're little peanut butter and jelly friends. They're little slices of bread. They have legs and arms and they're holding hands. Well, I wanted to make a friend stuffy, and peanut butter and jelly just seemed like the perfect thing.
It made sense coming from Audrey because that's her favorite sandwich. She would probably eat that every day if I let her.
Super surprised and happy. When I won the Canada level, I got to donate $100 to a charity of my choice, and I was going to get a free stuffy.
So as a Canadian finalist, she got to donate $100 to a charity of her choice, and she chose Ronald McDonald House here in Saskatoon.
Now that I've won the whole entire thing, I'm going to get my drawing made into a stuffy to be sold in IKEA.
One of the global winners, the proceeds from the sales of the stuffies will go to children's charities. So we're really proud that that's how it's going to work out. And yeah, I just think it's wonderful.
Very sweet. And that is our show for you tonight. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6, and I'll see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night.